Thank you for choosing Synovision CT product. The following contents will be introduced in this video. CT system composition, the scan room environment, the startup, control and use of the gantry and the patient table, use of the CT box and shutdown procedures. The CT system consists of the gantry, on which the product model can be seen. For instance, Insitum represents the Insitum CT scanner series, the patient table and the power adapter. These components are usually placed in the scan room. In the operating room, we can see the CT operation console, monitor, the CT box, the keyboard and mouse. We can see that there is a prominent green button on the CT console. This is the main switch to turn on the CT system. The CT system has a strict environmental requirement. Inapplicable environmental conditions may result in a significant decrease in image quality or may not even able to be used for diagnosis. The recommended ambient temperature is 22 to 25 degrees, and the optimum humidity should be maintained between 40 to 60%. It is required to install an air conditioner and maintain a constant temperature. Hospitals located in special areas should pay attention to dehumidification and humidification. It is recommended to prepare a hygrometer to monitor the scan room conditions at any time. In case of a power failure or a complete power outage of the CT for more than half an hour during the operation, wait for 2 hours before doing any patient scanning. It is recommended to shut down the CT once a day. Note that the reboot should be performed 3 minutes after the shutdown. Turning on the CT is very simple. Press the green button on the CT console. The green button lights up. During the waiting process, you can see the CT box display, the main LED display, and the gantry display area light up consecutively until the username and password input window appears. This is the gantry. At the upper part of the gantry there is the display control panel. Above is the display area. Below are the control buttons. The buttons are used to control the movement of the patient table and the gantry. The functions of these buttons are as follows. The 4 direction keys can be used to control the cradle, up, down, in, out. The one in the middle is the accelerator key. Hold it to speed up the cradle in or out of gantry with the cradle in, out buttons. Here we can see 3 preset position buttons, which are marked by the number 1, 2, 3, and 1 quick release button. By holding the cradle for 3 seconds, the table will automatically move to the preset position. During the movement of the table, the selected button will always blink. If you need to stop, press this button at any time, and the cradle movement will stop. So how to set these preset position button? After we move the table to the corresponding position, we can see the corresponding table height and depth position on the gantry display panel. If we want to set this position to the button marked 1, we should first hold the accelerator button and then press the number key 1. Press both for 3 seconds simultaneously and the 2 keys will blink briefly. At this moment the shortcut button 1 is successfully set. While the patient table is moving, the horizontal position or height of the table will be updated simultaneously on the gantry display control panel. This is the laser alignment light button. The laser is positioning plane. Note that sometimes the laser light may need a few seconds to light up when you press this button. Please wait patiently and do not press the button repeatedly. After the laser positioning is done, you can directly start scanning. It usually does not require to clear the table position. In some special cases, such as biopsy positioning, you can use this zero out button to clear the current position. There are red buttons on both sides, and two at the rear side of the gantry. You can find the same button on the CT box as well. These are emergency stop switches. Note that emergency stop switches should not be used under non-emergency situations. In case of an emergency, for example an imminent collision during the movement of the patient table, press the emergency stop switch and the scanning end as well as the movement of the gantry, and patient table will stop immediately. The recovery operation should only be performed while the emergency stop switch is pressed. Rotate clockwise according to the direction of the arrow on the switch. The switch pops back up and the gantry resumes power. This recovery process takes 30 seconds. Again, use the emergency stop in case of emergencies only. If you determine that the CT does not work normally after the startup, please check the emergency stop switches on the gantry and CT box for errors first. This is the patient table that is used to carry a patient and can support a body weight up to 206 kilograms. The movement of the patient table is controlled by the direction buttons on the control panel on the gantry. The specific position is displayed on the display area above the gantry. At this time, the table is at the farthest position from the gantry. That is the initial position. If the table is at the horizontal position, the gantry is showing 0. As the table moves, the numbers are constantly changing. There are two yellow buttons on both sides of the table, called cradle release button. Under normal circumstances, the cradle on the table cannot be manually moved. When one of the cradle release buttons is pressed, the cradle will be unlocked from the table and can be moved freely. Manually, the cradle can be pulled horizontally out of the gantry. Press the button again to lock the cradle. Note: do not use the cradle release buttons unless there is an emergency. If you determine that the machine cannot be used normally after the startup, please check the cradle release buttons for errors first. The CT box is used to control the CT system remotely to perform scanning and mechanical movement. There are various control buttons and sliders. We will introduce them one by one. The first button is the emergency stop switch. Be careful not to press it by mistake. The stop button cancels the scan commands. This is the return position button, which moves the patient table to the preset position and then stops automatically. To stop the table movement, release the return position button. This is the start button. Once the X-rays is on, the background of this icon will turn orange. This is the move button. After the scan command is sent to the CT system, the patient table needs to be moved to the start scan position. This button is used to confirm the movement. There are 3 volume control sliders. The first one controls the volume when the operator listens to the voice from the scan room. The second slider controls the volume when the operator talks to the patient who is in the scan room. And the third slider controls the out-of-voice volume. Push the slider up to increase the volume, and down to decrease until there is no sound. The operator needs to press and hold the intercom button while the operator is speaking to the patient who is in the scanning room. Click the shutdown icon in the lower left corner of the screen. If you choose reboot, the application will restart automatically within 10 seconds. If you need to shut down, it is recommended to check that 1. The patient table is returned to the home position. 2. The sending queues and filming queues are empty. After you have checked everything, choose Shutdown to power off the system. The system will automatically complete the subsequent shutdown steps. Note: the shutdown process will be slightly slower if a large number of image was deleted before the shutdown, but the steps will be completed automatically by the system. Note: the startup should be performed 3 minutes after the shutdown. That's all for our introduction. We hope this video will help you to understand the operations of Synovision CT product.